First knew about Garland's work through the book he wrote, The Beach, in the mid 90s, and I was working in the city of London, and there was a copy of this book everywhere, this little blue book, and he's really spawned a generation of people who escaped the West to go to the East, and I was one of them. I became a backpacker pretty much on the back of Alex Garland's book, so I've always been a fan. I've always admired his work, particularly in the zombie genre. And obviously, Danny Boyle adapted and directed the film The Beach. So there's been a working relationship of sorts for going on almost 25 years. So between them, they know how to make a piece of media, a piece of film, I think. And a lot of the criticisms I've seen across the YouTube sphere that I'd like to address, because I think some of the points and the intentions of the movie are overlooked by the audience, who are ordinarily looking for like kind of plot holes or you know themes that didn't match, and the kind of hodgepodge nature of the film was off-putting to many. So to go straight in, it begins in the first wave of the virus, and Jimmy is watching the Teletubbies with a group of friends when the zombie ambush wave crashes through the front door. Jimmy sees his family killed, his mum in the house and his dad in the church. But going back to the Teletubbies, because the Teletubbies do feature again audibly in the end, and I wanted to mention what I felt was the intention of Garland and Boyle here is actually an old theory of horror, which was first put forward by Sigmund Freud around 100 years ago, about 1920, I think, and that's called the Uncanny. When something that is considered cute or cuddly or nice is twisted, it can be even more scary than the monster itself. That's why we've had all these films where like dolls come to life. Dolls, the film itself is one of my favorites, but also like Chucky and Puppet Master and these films. It hits a deep element of fear in our psyche that and as Freud said himself, that children might not fear that their toys come alive, but as an adult we find it terrifying. So I think that's what they were trying to do with the initial scene with Jimmy there, and then later on we go, well, shortly after we go and we follow Spike, who's in this kind of rural community which is set aside from the mainland by the causeway. There's two things going on here. I think the first one is the tradition of British folk horror. If you've watched the film like the original 1973 Wicker Man, you will see that a similar community are left to kind of develop isolated and film, have their own rituals. And one of their rituals was the rite of passage for Spike to go into the mainland and kill his first zombie. Also, the causeway itself. So we got a reference to the Uncanny. We got a reference to British folk horror, and then we've got a Gothic reference as well. The traditional Gothic horror movie has this kind of element of this kind of barrier between the safe world and the ordinary world and the extraordinary world. That's the Maya in the How to Basketballs. The other argument I heard repeatedly was this is like not one movie, it's three movies all spliced together and we don't know what's going on. That was intentional. I heard the same criticisms when Pulp Fiction first came out in the mid 90s. People were saying it's not linear, it hasn't got a plot, and Tarantino answered this by himself. He said a lot of books are designed that way. The linear plot narrative is one way of making a film, but it's not the only game in town. You can have different films, different themes within one film, which and as the audience, I enjoy that. I'm wondering what is he going to do next. So there's some unbelievable parts to it as well. I mean, the zombie baby delivery in the train carriage was kind of, these are all spoilers, I'm assuming you've watched the movie. That was kind of unbelievable, but also it was kind of, as a nod to the Korean Train to Busan movie, which I loved. And yeah, he got away with it, I think. And then he even got away with going to this Apocalypse Now type bone temple. And Garland, having traveled Southeast Asia quite heavily, probably took this from the killing fields in Cambodia, where they have a similar kind of monument with human skulls. That's probably where he got the idea. And then you have the, the Heart of Darkness, Colonel, who's gone native type theme, which is wonderful. I enjoy watching the film because I enjoy watching the references that he's picked out of 20th century cinema, literature, art, and put to film. I mean, that's a great thing. And then the troubling movement, of course, is the J bomb. At the end, Spike seems to have recovered from the death of his mother. He's abandoned the family in the community, and he's decided to go out alone. He fishes for a salmon, which he cooks on a barbecue. Then he encounters a group of zombies who he runs from. He's cornered, but then a guy in a tracksuit, fluorescent leisure wear with a bunch of Droog-like characters, again another reference, Clockwork Orange, assist him. And as they do, there's they're using Power Rangers type moves, And this is the one thing that really made me smile about the criticism that we've heard, is that people were saying they would criticize it as if it was a Marvel film. They wanted a linear plot. They wanted this to happen, that to happen. They were thrown off by this and that. But the only part of the film that looks like a Marvel film, smells like a Marvel film, and sounds like a Marvel film is the final scene, which everyone hated. I don't think the majority of reviewers really know who Jimmy Savile was. I do. I watched the TV show, Jim Will Fix It. I wrote a letter to Jimmy Savile. Thankfully, he never replied, but write a letter I did. And what can I say that Garland and Dorr are doing here? That the time has frozen. Before the revelations about this guy Savile, who was he was an abuser of immense proportions. He was a terrible human being, and the idea that people can worship figures before their true character is revealed is an interesting idea, and I can't wait to see how he follows it up. But yeah, a brave choice. I enjoyed it because I was upset the film was ending the way it did. I didn't want a happy ending. I wanted something crazy, and I got it because the rest of the film was crazy. It needs to be crazy too. The other things that we can touch upon, maybe it's a meditation about immigration anxiety that's currently theme in British politics and public concern. Maybe it's something about Brexit. England separating itself from the rest of Europe. They're all underlying themes, but there's so much to unpack in this movie, and to dismiss it as unwatchable or a bad movie is simply not good enough, because I think it's one of the best movies of 2025. So if you like the movie, leave a comment. If you hate the movie, leave a comment. If you don't agree with anything I've said, leave a comment. Subscribe if you can, and hit my Substack. Strange bites on the mainstream, snarky bites even, and there should be links and stuff in the description below.